Thank you very much. Welcome council, welcome staff, welcome members of the public. I know it's our school board trustees in the attendance tonight. Janice McKenna Hutchison, welcome. Would everybody please rise and join me for the singing of O Canada, please. Thank you very much. Please remain standing for a moment of silent contemplation, please. Thank you very much. Please be seated. The town of Newtecumseth, we acknowledge that we are on the treaty lands and traditional territory of Anishinaabe peoples, specifically the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. The land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. Newtecumseth is covered by the Lake Simcoe Nottawasaga Treaty Number 18, signed on October 17, 1818, with the Chippewa Nation. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people and accept our responsibility to honor all our relations and move forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Thank you. I'm now going to the clerk for confirmation of the agenda. So clerk, could you please identify any items to add or delete to the agenda, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are no items to add or delete.
Thank you very much. I have a motion before us. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting held on March 27th, 2023 be confirmed as circulated. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Jacks. All those in favor, please. That's carried. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. If any council member has the disclosure of pecuniary interest, please identify it now. Councillor Best, please.
Thank you, Worship. Item CW2-1, Heritage Advisory Committee. I have to declare because I am a member of the United Church of Canada.
Thank you, Councillor Best. So they'll be duly noted in the minutes. Any other councillors? Okay. During the course of a meeting, if you do realize that you're in a conflict or a potential conflict, please raise your hand. I'll immediately acknowledge you, and you can excuse yourself at that point. So moving on, adoption of council minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the council meeting dated March 13th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Biss, Councillor Cox, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the clerk, please, to identify items for separate discussion and the reasons thereof, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item D-1, Michael DeHaan, Vice President, External Relations, Lakehead University Aurelia Campus Information Session, as there is a deputation. Item CW21, Heritage Advisory Committee Summary Report dated February 21st, 2023, as we have a disclosure of pecuniary interest. And item CS2, Citizen Appointments for Youth Advisory, or for Advisory Committees, as we are requiring direction.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Council, I'm going to go to you now to identify any items you'd like to pull for separate discussion, and I'll start over here on the horseshoe. And I'm just going to come around. I'm coming up this side. Counselor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. R4, please.
Thank you, Counselor Foster. Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have to pull CS1?
Yes.
Okay, CS1 then,
Thank
please.
you. I'm not seeing any other hands going up. So now I'm going to go back to the clerk, please, to summarize all items identified for separate discussion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item D-1, item R-4, Town Hall Project Status Report Number 10. Item CW21. Item CS1, Verbal Report from the CAO, Re 25 Albert Street, and item CS2.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So we have a motion be it resolved that items CW1 to CW5 on the Committee of the Whole Meeting Report dated March 13, 2023, including additional information memorandums with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, be approved, and the recommendations therein be adopted. And further, that communication items and any other items listed on the council meeting agenda dated March 13, 2023, with the exception of those items identified for separate discussion, to be received and are adopted. Moved by Councillor Gabrick, second by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? Thank you. We don't have any deputations requiring statutory or public meetings. So what I'd like to do now is, before we get into our presentation, is there any awards, recognitions, or acknowledgements of upcoming events that council members would like to make? I could look to Councillor Jacks, then I'd go to Councillor Gabrick. Councillor Jacks, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This coming Saturday, April 1st, is a very special event in our town. It's the Keenan's Family Walk. It will be held at the Tottenham Community and Rec Centre at 9:30 a.m. This year, it is a fundraising event, and the annual proceeds from this event will be going to install an AED heated rotate cabinet at the Beaton Community Park. There's lots of games, and it's a walk, a 1 kilometer walk around a route in town. This is in honor of Keenan Boston. His tragic passing at a very young age became a blessing through organ donation, and this event honors the 10-year organ donation milestone. There's more information at the Facebook group named Keenan Helps Keenan's Family Walk 2023.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jacks. I know there'll be members of council out there on Saturday participating, and it's 9:30, right, Councillor Jacks, at the Tottenham Community Centre. Thank you. Councillor Gabrick.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I would like to please invite everyone to become a friend of the New Tecumseth Public Library. This coming Tuesday, April the 4th, from 5:30 until 6 at the Alliston branch. We welcome new friends to join us and further support the library so it can continue its good works in the community. So we welcome you all to come out. And further to that, I have a request of Your Worship. The library would be thrilled if you would proclaim April 4th as Friends of the Library Day.
Absolutely, and I'll speak to the clerk's department tomorrow to see if we can do that for you.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Are there any other deputations, awards, or recognitions? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'll move into our presentation then. Michael Dahan is the Vice President of External Relations, Lakehead University. And welcome, sir. Come on up. We have a podium. We have a microphone.
And it's
Welcome
working.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to give a bit of time, give an update on Simcoe County's university. My name's Mike Denhan. I'm the Vice President of External Relations with Lakehead University. I live in Simcoe County, but I work at both campuses, the Aurelia and Thunder Bay campus, so I'm up and down quite a bit these days. And there's a presentation in front of you. I'll speak to the slides a little bit, and as we move to the next slide, I'll talk a bit about myself briefly, because I'm a first-generation Canadian, and I learned the value of a university education from my dad, who immigrated here from the Netherlands in the 1950s, and he taught me the value of hard work and good education. He valued that especially after he graduated from Banting Memorial High School here in Alliston and pushed me to go to university as well. I now work at a university that works hard to ensure that any student from any walk of life can have access to a university education and thrive. Since 2006, our mandate has been to provide learners with access to degree-level education. Next slide. When the Orillia campus was established in 2006, the degree attainment rate in Simcoe County was significantly below the provincial and national average. In 2016, only 18.3% of people aged 25 to 64 in Simcoe County had a bachelor's degree or higher, less than the provincial average of 32%. Since 2016, Lakehead Orillia has seen tremendous growth in its student population. We've seen a 41% increase in university degree enrollments at Lakehead Orillia, and 45% of our students come from Simcoe County. Lakehead's committed to helping students overcome barriers to access and offering every student a transformative experience. This is reflected in the statistics you see in front of you. 94% of students have at least one barrier to education, from financial to accessibility requirements. Over 50% of our student population is the first in their family to go to post-secondary. So our smaller campus tends to feel more like home and more familiar. One of our biggest draws is the fact that we're in Simcoe County. Next slide. Lakehead works hard to support students and their success. We also play a significant role in the economic development of our region. The economic impact of the Orillia campus alone is $245.7 million. That's annually. And it doesn't factor in Lakehead's $3.56 billion impact on Ontario's GDP as a whole. Having a university here in Simcoe County generates a number of benefits. Attracts students from other parts of the province to the county, increasing the number of students that will stay and live here. We have over 2,500 Lakehead University alumni within the county of Simcoe alone. We attract students from other countries, increasing diversity of population in the region. Lakehead Orillia currently has 118 international students coming from 29 countries. There's a 28% increase in the on-campus population from 2018. And after graduating, these students apply for work permits that allow them to work here for 3 years full-time, and that allows them to then apply for permanent residency. We also attract talent to the area. Faculty, staff move into Simcoe County, become residents, contributing as taxpayers, but also as residents, buying local, living local, etc. Over 250 faculty and staff are employed at Lakehead and live in Simcoe County, just like myself. In our partnership with Georgian College, we've introduced new STEM programming, including highly sought-after programs like computer science, electrical engineering, with a new engineering program set to launch this fall. Next slide. Having Lakehead here in Simcoe County means that students can stay in their home community to study and live, which makes them more likely to stay here once they've completed their degree. Out of the 2,100 students enrolled at the Orillia campus and Lakehead Georgian, 950 of them come from across Simcoe County and 23 from the town of New Tecumseh. Alumni like Jessica Maher, who completed her undergraduate degree in the sciences, want to return back to her community here in Simcoe County once finished. And she's in med school at the moment. I'd like to share her story with you now. Let's see if this works. It worked this morning, I promise.
That's okay. No, that's okay. And you do realize, though, we do have a timeline on presentations.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we move on? We'll send you the video after. I think you'll really appreciate it. She's
I think
from
we'd
the
like to
area.
see it. She's a local girl, and I'm
Well,
sure there's people
she
here
is
that
local.
know her.
Yeah. All right, well, I'll move on. It's also about increasing access to new talent. When asked how many of our students find work after graduation, we can proudly say that 97% of our Orillia campus students find work within their field of study and within 2 years. That's been consistently above the provincial average for many years. Lakehead also connects local employers with talented students and graduates seeking part-time, full-time, and cooperative positions. While Lakehead University is a relatively small university, we are consistently one of the leaders in terms of research productivity and impact. Since 2006, Aurelia faculty members have been awarded more than $6.3 million in research funding, areas like cybersecurity, the arts, environment. Dr. Laredo, as you see on the screen here, is one of the researchers in the oil industry looking for assistance in decontaminating water as well as soil polluted by the oil extraction process. She's working with Dr. Erica Pensini from the University of Guelph to investigate energy-efficient water remediation methods to ensure the water we drink and use to irrigate crops is not a source of toxins. Next slide. In addition to industry partnerships for collaboration to conduct research, Lakehead also provides access to resources for industry and education opportunities. As you can all imagine, education must evolve to continue meeting the needs of our region. Lakehead continues to work hard at this at both the high school level and with people who are retired as part of our lifelong continuing learning programs. Working with high school students in the special high skills major, we have offered the Ontario Youth Naturalist Certificate Program in high schools across the county. Through the Office of Community Engagement, Lifelong Learning, our team facilitated lectures and workshops in the last year for over 750 learners in the 50-plus category. Next slide. So what is next? You can be proud that Lakehead is the highest ranked university in the world with under 10,000 students in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings. The Aurelia campus now has over 2,000 students and we're out of space. We're also looking into the future and remain committed to serving the county. This means we aim to grow our student body from 2,000 to 3,500 students, and we'll add 10 new programs in the coming years. Programs that we plan to align with the future needs of this region. So our future is growth and service. Last slide. So thank you again for this opportunity to give you an update on Lakehead University. I'd like to invite you all, Mayor and Council, to the Aurelia campus for a tour at any time. And through your worship, I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have for me.
Thank you very much for that very informative presentation, and congratulations on your success. You're certainly going in the right direction. Is there any comments or questions of our presenter? Councillor Bess?
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship, just a quick question. I just want to, first of all, my brother is an alumni of Lakehead University.
Fantastic.
Yes, and he lives abroad and teaches abroad. I just want to ask one question, though. What is the percentage of, maybe you mentioned it here, but what's the percentage of applicants from Simcoe County versus other parts of the province?
Applicants, I don't know. Student body is about 41%, if I see that right. But I don't have the applicant numbers. We can probably get that for you.
Through your Worship, just because I was just curious to know. You know, it's one of those things. If we can promote more applications, let us know how we can do that.
Absolutely.
I think that would be a great way to not only encourage the students who are thinking about higher education in this area to then reinvest their efforts and bring it home.
Fantastic. If I might, there's a press release today of a new program from the county, student bursaries who are from here and want to study locally, and that might be worth promoting through the area here too. That could help as well.
Thank you. Councillor Gabrick?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Speaker, because we do have some transportation issues within Simcoe County, it's a pretty vast region. If there's people who live in New Tecumseth currently and would like to either study concurrently or from a distance online, do you have programs like that will accommodate?
We do. We've got online programs, hybrid programs, depending on where they want to study, how they want, what area they want to study in. They're more flexible than others, but it's worth looking into and seeing what we have to offer specifically.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson's next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the Speaker, just a comment. I just wanted to say thank you for refreshing us on the school and its efforts. And maybe I'm just dating myself, but It was nice to have a reminder of it being Simcoe County's university. I don't think I've ever thought about it in that context. And when I hear Lakehead, I still think of Thunder Bay. So thank you for resurrecting its position and it being a valuable asset in our county.
Thank you.
And Counselor, you're right on when you said that, Simcoe County University, that it resonated with myself as well when you, so I'm not sure what the next marketing program is, but maybe kind of factor that in because it's really, it went home with it. Counselor Foster, you were next, please.
Thank you. Just impressive is what I wanted to say. I thought the statistics were remarkable, and it was a great presentation, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Rappin.
Through you to Michael. Yeah, sounds great. I was just wondering, you'd mentioned you're out of space, so would you be looking for partnerships elsewhere within the county?
Right now, we're looking at expanding on our current campus. So and this is why we'd love to give you a tour. We have 85 acres on our campus at the moment, and we occupy about 15 to 20 of those acres. So we have space on the current site, but a lot of our programs are also expanding out, not just our lifelong learning programs, but our undergraduate programs as well. So we're looking for ways to partner within the county and are having lots of great discussions about partnership right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you taking the time and coming down to give this presentation. And as you can tell, it was very well received.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a motion to be resolved. The presentation of Michael DeHaan be received. Councillor Cox, Deputy Mayor, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Council, we're moving on to the agenda. The first item that was pulled was item R4. Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. With respect to the these are the questions that I have relate to not so much about going backwards, but understanding that the current project had a baseline finish or a contractual initial finish of August 31st. And here we are just a few days shy of March 31st. And so some of the questions that I'll ask relate to how confident we are in the situation moving forward as to the dates and the information presented in the current town hall project. So I guess the first question would be is noted in the report that as of March 1st, the site meetings and project staff presence has increased. And I guess follow the question would that be is that why the increase now and was that present a number of months ago?
Thank you. I'm going to direct to you, CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. Through you to Councillor Foster. In looking at the project, how it was progressing, we internally moved some things around to free up some additional staff resourcing. So Ms. Cadet, our manager of procurement, is the individual that's on site, I think about 3 to 4 times a day right now, and that started a few weeks ago. And we believe that given some of the challenges that we were incurring or that we were experiencing with both the contractor and some issues flowing through with the architect, that an increased staff presence was required to facilitate the communications on site, and I think it's been beneficial.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you, CAO. Following along in the reports, status report 8, as I've put in previous emails, we're showing a late Q1, early Q2. I'm quoting now from the report. Late Q1, early Q2, substantial completion. Status report 9, as early as January 30th, showed a late Q1, early Q2, substantial completion. And this report now dated March 27th shows a late Q2 2023 substantial completion. Since all the other dates have come and gone through various iterations of the schedule, what's the confidence level now of the most current date? I guess expressed as a percentage, expressed as your level of confidence, however you want to express it.
CAO?
Through you, Mayor Norcross, to Councillor Foster and members of council. That's an interesting question, Councillor Foster, because as you know, being in the industry, I could say one thing today and be proven wrong tomorrow because of just increase or decrease in labor availability or labor usage by the contractor. So I will answer if the level of attention stays at the same that it has been, the date of mid-June I am fairly confident with at this point in time. If the approach or the level of labor drops off, then again, that date I think falls into more question. But if it increases, then again, I can see it being finished on time and perhaps even earlier. But as I said, it's a difficult question, recognizing that the availability of labor is in the contractor's hands. And like I say, at this point in time, if it were to stay relatively the same, then I'm fairly confident in the date.
Thank you. The baseline, some of the questions are going to fall off into the delay claim, which I think we're going to take into in camera. So if I believe the follow-up is something of a sensitive nature, I'll just put it off until further, if that's acceptable to yourself, instead of asking a question and having you say, let's leave it to in camera. So if that's okay. I just want to ask for clarification on one, some wording in the in report number 10, and the wording is, quote, staff are closely tracking expenditures to ensure the project is completed within the overall budget, including reviewing opportunities to prioritize purchase under the FFE line item. I just, when I read that, well, I don't want to make any assumptions. If I could ask for clarification of how you see that and whether the interpretation of the wording, if I could.
I'll go to you, CAO, and you can direct.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. I'll ask Ms. Tanya Godet, our Manager of Procurement, to speak to that.
Thank you. Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, CAO. As an example, the AV system, we've had to make some changes to accommodate the overage in the AV system. However, we're now looking at FF&E and saying, okay, are there other meeting rooms, as an example, that perhaps don't need the level of equipment that we were considering? Is there perhaps, we had planned for growth as a second example, is there an option to perhaps scale back some of that growth? So that would be the idea with prioritizing FF&E.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, you want to, I'll come back to you, Councilor Foster. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. So in the report, the last paragraph just above alternative options, it mentions our building department attending the site to identify deficiencies, and it mentions some: the sidewalk, the curb cuts, long tupper, too narrow, gap between existing slab and new one on the second floor, wooden beams, roof decking within the atrium discolored because of being in the elements. Who pays for that remediation?
I'll go to the CEO and you can direct our answer, please.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. Through you to Deputy Mayor McClellan and members of council, the contractor would if there are noted deficiencies.
And Mr. CEO, is like, I'm not going to call it a warranty, but in my mind, my world, it's a warranty on. Can you advise how long the warranties are on the workmanship? Or sorry, direct as you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and CAO. I believe it's a 12-month warranty. I will confirm those details, though.
Okay, and that's on workmanship, and then, for example, mechanical equipment and all that stuff has its own warranties.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay,
So there are, a number of equipment items that would have a lifetime warranty. Windows have a very long warranty. That is workmanship, 12 months.
I was going to say, and that's pretty typical across the board. Workmanship is 12 months, and then the warranty of the equipment that you use can go 5, 10 lifetime.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that for me. Councillor Foster, sorry, I'll go back to you, sir.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Norcross, to whomever the CAO delegates. Report refers to 6 to 8 weeks following substantial completion for, and I quote, final finishing, occupancy permit, final landscaping, external work. And if I go back to the original contract documents of June 14th, the scope of the work for this project includes, but not limited to, all site development works, including parking lot construction, hard and soft landscaping. So without reading the entire, is the additional 6 or 8 weeks for those pieces, final finishing, final landscape, and external work, is that contractor obligations, or are any of those additional tenders that were put out to accommodate? That all covers under the Matheson umbrella?
CAO? No.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. Through you to Councillor Foster and members of council, that would all be under the Matheson envelope.
Okay, so then subsequent to that, that would be considered in the 3% that's not part of substantial completion, to allow them to grant substantial completion and consider that work outside of it. Is that what I read from that?
CAO?
Through you, Mayor Norcross, to Councillor Foster, yes. The short answer would be
Okay.
yes. And then to address any deficiencies in that 6 to 8 weeks is a rough estimate on our part, not their part. That we
Okay.
thought, just for finishing, we'd probably look at about 6 to 8 weeks, but yes.
Okay, and then just back to one thing about the FF&E, judging from Ms. Gaudette's comments, that the fixtures, furnishings, and equipment are not purchased. Considering that the original completion date was in 2022, why are we dealing with that at this point in time, after the substantial completion
CAO?
original date?
Thank you, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, CAO. We do have our contractor for furniture as an example. We have our appliances, they're selected, we're ready to place those orders. We've been making delays as necessary to ensure that it aligns with the actual completion date of the construction.
Okay. The last question is, considering price escalations over that time, has there been any effort made to control the prices as we delay things?
To you, CAO, and you direct. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. CAO, through you, Worship, to Councillor Foster. Yes, we are operating under a contract, a cooperative contract for furniture, so that has had fixed pricing. We've also been monitoring the price of things like appliances to ensure that we're not going to see price increases as a result of the delay.
If I could, through the mayor, just,
Please,
so
Foster.
when you look at the entire project, figuring substantial completion, figuring occupancy, figuring the time required to put the fixtures, furnishings, equipment, the audio visual, when is the new realistic date for, I guess, staff occupancy? Like fully functional, operational?
I'll go to the CAO.
I wouldn't dare ask you for a day. I'm just looking for,
I was trying to understand that myself too, from the substantial to the 60. Like, when do you get to go in and use it? Go ahead, Mr. CO.
At this point, my best estimate, the 6 to 8 weeks on top of the substantial completion should not impact occupancy or utilization of the space to any great degree. So I would think at this point in time, if we have substantial completion around mid-June, then you're probably seeing occupancy, I would estimate at this point, probably about a month or so later.
okay. Any other questions are in camera?
No,
Thank you.
and that's fine. And just any other members, Councillor Rappin, please.
Just an observation or comment, two actually. One is, for all the stuff we're buying, are we not getting the 2022 model, so it should be a little bit cheaper? Because that's when it was supposed to be done? No? Okay. Then the other thing was, when you were talking about finding the warranty and stuff, I thought of a lot of our I've never had the privilege of buying a brand new house, but I've been to many friends who have, and you walk in and they've got painter's tape here and there. So I have a feeling that'll be a decoration in the new town hall there for a little while. But anyway, it was just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you for those. Yep, sorry. No, that's fine. Go to Councillor Jacks next, please.
Thank you, through your worship. Just to go back and clarify, and I apologize if I missed this, when we're talking about the fixtures, equipment, and furnishings, Ms. Gallant had said that there is we have a contractual arrangement and fixed pricing. Does that include the availability of the equipment and furniture that we're looking at? I know we have from my understanding, we have the relationship and the pricing model, but I also know people are still waiting for couches and fridges and dishwashers from 2021 for their residential. Does that in any way going to impact availability for us? Thank you.
I'll go to you, Mr. CEO, if you'd like to direct.
Thank you, CAO. Through you, worship, to Councillor Jacks. It has actually worked out in our favor. Lead times have actually come down on things like furniture. There are still some longer lead items, lounge furniture as an example, but the vast majority of what we would be requiring has actually come down in lead time, sitting somewhere around the 5-week mark at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Biss?
Thank you, Worship. Just a comment and then a quick question. I mean, overall, excellent report, CAO, to you and your staff. I mean, I always keep in mind that the project leader for this has been out for a while, still recovering. We're subject to significant supply chain issues. They still remain, despite the fact that I guess it's working in our favor now. Prices of commodities have been fluctuating throughout the entire build. We're experiencing extreme 40-year inflation, labor shortages that you also mentioned, CAO. So it's nice to see that despite 58 change orders, mainly due to soil issues and floor topping replacements, sewer works, things that you really can't see with the naked eye, you're on budget. So congratulations to the team for keeping us on budget and spending 87% of the total contingency, but it looks like at the end of the day, it's all going to be on budget and on time. So congratulations to the staff. What I would also like to just point out is the fact that if substantial completion is slated for mid-late June, would you agree that, CAO, would you agree that 6 to 8 weeks is reasonable, considering you couldn't take delivery of anything else until substantial completion was done? Of anything, sorry, would you agree that 6 to 8 weeks is reasonable because you couldn't take delivery of anything else until substantial completion was done?
Mr. CEO?
Through you, Mayor Norcross, to Councillor Biss and members of council. My apologies, Councillor Biss. Is 6 to 8 weeks reasonable for what we've identified as the final finishings and deficiency addressing? That's our best estimate at this point in time. I don't have any reason to think that it's not reasonable. But again, those of you that live in the construction world will tell you that the first 95% goes wonderfully. The last 5% is always the hardest to deliver. So but at this point in time, I don't see any reason why 6 to 8 weeks is not reasonable.
Councillor Biss?
Thank you, Worship. Through your worship to the CAO. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, you know, when people read this report, they might ask, why do we have to wait 6 to 8 weeks longer? But I think the way I read it, and would you agree that the reason is because we have to wait for everything to be done internally before we can deliver all the internal furnishings and do the finishing touches. Is that correct?
Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mayor Norcross, to Councillor Biss and members of council. A bit of a complex answer to that, Councillor Biss, but in short, yes, we certainly want to make sure that a number of the finishing, or there was nothing substantially left to finish before we started to move, actual furniture and more importantly, people. And just as important are our residents and customers that may be utilizing the space for our services, because we don't want them ducking, scaffolding, and things like that. So we'd certainly want the majority of those finishings completed. The other thing to consider as well is if there's any external finishings, again, we don't want people walking through, mud to get into the new building either. So we'd want to make sure that most of those external finishings are complete as well.
Okay, so then my understanding was the 6 to 8 weeks is different than when the furnishings and fixtures show up. I understood it as 6 to 8 weeks is the time we take to identify it and them to fix. Is that?
That would be within the 6 to 8 weeks as well. At this point in time, Mayor Norcross, it's difficult to estimate exactly what kind of deficiencies we'd be dealing with. We know we have a couple, what we're determining as fairly substantial, that we'd want addressed prior to occupancy.
Okay, and then to clarify, we will not order the furnishings and fixtures until after that 6 to 8 week, or if we take occupancy on June 24th, Mr. CEO, is it safe to say you would place the order for if it's a 5 to 6 week lay, or what would be the thought process?
Actually, Mayor Norcross, I'll let Ms. Gaudette speak to that because she's been dealing with that element of the project, but I believe the ordering is actually being prepared at this point in time. But Ms. Gaudette?
Sorry, I'm looking for clarification. It's exactly how I understand it. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it.
Thank you, CAO. Yes, Worship, you are correct. We would be ordering the furniture in advance to have it here in that 6 to 8 week period. So at the end of the 6 to 8 week period, we would be in a position to take occupancy and move staff there.
Okay, thank you. So, no, I just wanted to clarify. Is there any other comments or questions from council? Just to point out, we will be going in camera later to deal with the legal aspect of the claim. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. That's the only thing we'll be discussing in camera is that legal aspect. So I'm not seeing any more. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you for that detailed report. Thank you, staff, for doing it. Now, so we have a motion be resolved. The report number PRC-2023-04 be received. A mover and a seconder, the deputy mayor, Councillor Rapp, and all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. So we're moving on now to item CW21, which is the Heritage Advisory Committee. Summary report dated February 21st. Let it be known that Councillor Biss has declared a pecuniary interest, a conflict, because of his membership at St. John's Church. So we do have a motion be resolved that the Heritage Advisory Committee summary report dated February 21st, 2023 be received. For that staff be directed to proceed with the designation process of St. John's United Church as set out in Part 5, 39-1 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Do we have a mover for that? Yes, Councillor Harrison, right there? Yeah, okay. We have a seconder? Councillor Cox, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Hey, Councillor, I'm seeing everything that's done on the regular agenda. So before we go into closed session though, please, I'd like to move the bylaws. So we have bylaws 2023-044, 2023-045, 2023-046. Be resolved that the following bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Moved by Councillor Foster, second by Councillor Biss. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Is there any general information from members of council? I'm not seeing any. Any notices of public notice? I'm not seeing any. I'll look at the clerk to confirm. We have none. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So then we have a motion be it resolved that council convene into closed meeting at 6:45 p.m. to discuss the two following items. One is CS1, which is a verbal report from the CAO, reference 25 Albert Street, as per the Municipal Act, excuse me, Section 239(2)(e), litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board. The second item is a C-S-2, citizen appointments for advisory committees, as per the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)(b), personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal and or local board employees. Mover and a seconder for that, Councillor Gabbard, second by Councillor Rappin. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Council. I will ask that we Look to the clerk to move into closed session, please. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion that council reconvene into open meeting at 7:42 following discussion of items CS-1 verbal report from the CEO referred 25 Albert Street and CS-2 citizen appointments for advisory committees. So mover and seconder, please. Councillor Barbic, Councillor Rappin, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're back into open session. So items for discussion is we have a motion be it resolved that the verbal report of the CEO be received. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Harrison McIntyre, Councillor Biss, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We're going to go to CS2, citizen appointments for advisory. I'm going to break this into two parts, if I may, Madam Clerk. Okay, so be resolved that report number admin 2023-0 be received. Further, that the confidential direction regarding appointments to committees, boards, and task force therein be approved in reference to the Youth Advisory Committee, that the terms of reference be amended to include up to 3 adult facilitators, that a minimum of 2 youth members are present in order to establish a quorum. That's fine. Council, that's fine. So Councillor Rappin, you move that. Thank you. Councillor Jacks, you will second that. Okay, thank you. And then we have the other item. We need to pick an option, and for that, a council will proceed with an option as long as it's reported in the comments and consideration section regarding the Agricultural Advisory Committee. There's an option for number A. Would somebody like to move and second that? Councillor Biss. Oh, you want to speak to it? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move option B.
I'm just looking here, Madam Clerk. The option for that is, could you please advise what the option number 2 is, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Option B would be to appoint the 2 applicants included in confidential attachment number 2 and commence meetings while continuing to advertise.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Councillor Harrison McIntyre? Any discussion? Councillor Biss?
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to point out, I think what we've discussed in camera was there are a number of other applicants that have had personal situations that they are looking forward to applying. Hopefully they do. And I think that based on some of the things that have transpired today, like the working session that we had with the Urban Design Guidelines Review, there are different activities that that our council and staff are moving forward with that would benefit from the input from our agricultural committee. So I was hoping that we won't delay this any further, but we'll get the first meeting underway and have them provide us with an agricultural and a rural lens on some of the things that we're doing day to day.
Any other comment, Councillor? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor McClellan.
Thank you, Mary Norcross. I think we're using a lot of our staff resources to continually look for a committee that, by all accounts, nobody really wants to sit on, to be honest. We've put it out there twice, and we're not getting any interest. I personally believe that we have 2 councillors that represent the rural and farming community quite well, very well. And I think in just a quick Google search while I was sitting here, if the agricultural community is looking for support, and I'm sure they have from many of these different advisory boards and committees, and There's the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, the Ontario Federation of Farmers, the NVCA has an agricultural committee, Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Ontario Farmland Trust, OMAFRA. We love farmers, it's how we eat. I think that with the difficulties that many industries are continuing to have with having enough staff, I would put my faith and my trust into our ward councillors and all of these other well-established agricultural supports to bring the issues forward and to make sure. I mean, certainly the previous Ward 5 councillor certainly didn't go a meeting without advocating for farmers and the agricultural community very well. So I think at this point, in the interest of moving forward and utilizing our staff in the best way we can, considering that, you know, us, as in many others, are struggling with finding employees, that I would support at this point disbanding the committee and continuing to ensure the interests of the agricultural community is represented through initiatives taken by other committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? I'll just make a comment. I'm not comfortable putting a committee together that doesn't meet the basic minimum criteria, the amount of memberships or the amount of people required. But that's my thought process, is that we should at least have the minimum members required before we go forward. Anyhow, we have a motion on the floor. It was moved by Councillor. Did you want to make a comment, Councillor Best? Sure.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your input. I just want to remind Council that we have a number of committees out there. We actually have 2 business improvement associations. We have 2 chambers of commerce in the town of New Tecumseh. The agricultural community is our second largest economic source of revenue and they employ hundreds of local people. There's 160 farm businesses in our community. None of them actually have a voice around this table. I agree, Deputy Mayor, that there are national and provincial associations that they can join and they can advocate on behalf of on a national and a provincial level. However, there are no local advocates for agriculture, for our rural communities. I will also remind Council that, as we said before, there were 4 communities that created the town of New Tecumseh, and Tecumseh was one of them. And that is mainly, and has been since then, a mainly rural community that doesn't have a voice on their own. I agree that having councillors that represent them is one good step, but it's not the only step. I think it's important that people actually have a voice for the rest of council to appreciate and for them to understand where we're going with our decisions, and then to influence and affect and advocate for different decisions if it's required. So I'm hoping that the council will support me and support the Agricultural Advisory Committee. I think it sends a very good message to our community. It sends a message. I mean, we found out today that the Urban Design Guidelines Review, the consultant wasn't even aware of any input from the agricultural community. So I think this is just one, if not many, different options and ways for agricultural committee to provide a voice for our community. So I hope you support it.
Thank you, Councillor Rappin.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Bess. I am unable to support option B, but I would gladly support option A if you had any consideration for whatever the process is, but I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you, Councillor Rappin. Councillor Jacks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Bess. I agree with Councillor Rappin. I supported your motion to initiate this committee, and I will maintain the support for the committee. I would respectfully, without adding discouragement or frustration about wanting to move the agenda or any key issues forward by the agricultural community, I would prefer to support option A and be able to contrast and compare the applicants to ensure that, as in all of our committees, the best people are appointed, and that we've got full visibility on everyone and anyone who's interested.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of council? One second. I'm going to make a comment. I'm very disappointed to hear that members of our agricultural community feel they don't have a voice around this table. And actually, that really bothers me, and I take offense to that. I am a voice around this table. There are lots of voices around this table for our agricultural community. So I just want to point that out. I hope they know that we're here for them. We will listen to them. We will do everything we can to help them. And, just reach out or communicate with us. But I certainly want them to know that they have voices around this table that absolutely support them. So, Councillor Best, Councillor Foster, you haven't spoken yet, please.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. Just, I think, just one clarification to Councillor Best. The urban design guidelines, if I recall, and it's all on tape, so we could go back and look. But I believe that Brent from the committee did not suggest that there was no input. He had suggested that items 5 and 6 on that would be brought forward at a later time. And so I just make a correction. If I was wrong, then I will recognize that at the next meeting. Second of all, I don't. I believe that voting records speak loudly to how people feel about the farming community, and most voting records are available on YouTube. So if people just want to take a look and see about voting records related to the preservation of farmland and how important the farming community is, it's all out there for public view. Thank you.
Is there any other member of council that would like to make a comment? Okay, Councillor Bisk, last word, and then I'm just going to call the motion.
Thank
Do
you,
you want
Worship.
to? I think you have two options to pursue.
Right, I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
So what I will do is thank you for the support from Councillor Rappin and Councillor Harrison McIntyre and Councillor Jack. So I will amend my motion to move it to option A. And I will also, Councillor Foster asked if he was wrong, and yes, he is wrong. I spoke with Brent after the meeting, and he said to me that he received no input from the Agricultural Committee. That's what he told me. And Jade, his assistant, also confirmed that. So, yes, but he did also confirm that later they will be providing us with Section 5.5 of the agribusiness storage guidelines, etc. But that was not a priority. So that's what kind of got me concerned about the voice, and then, of course, move me towards option B. But I understand council's where council is going with this, so I would like to change my motion to option A.
Seconder, do you agree to that? Thank you. That's a minute, but just and thank you for that. But I'm not sure how that gentleman can make that statement that he heard nobody from the agricultural community when we had public open houses, and I don't think people were identified what their industry is or where they worked in when you went to those public open houses or when you gave your comments. So I just want to be fair to everybody that's been involved and make it perfectly clear. Staff did a great job of advertising, and you did. And we've engaged in the public, and that's what we're going to continue to do, and every opportunity that we do continue. So I want to be fair that there was plenty of opportunity giving. If we can do a better job to get people out, we're always striving, but I just want to be fair. So Councillor Biss as moving option A. It's seconded by Councillor Harrison McIntyre. All those in favor, please, for option A. 3, 4, 5. No, it doesn't carry. Oh, it does? Sorry, 1, 2, 3. Okay, yep. Thank you. So that's carried. So I have to do a separate, I'm just going to read the separate motion. And further, the council proceed with option A as outlined in this report in the comments and consideration section regarding the Agricultural Advisory Committee. Thank you. And I'll have that moved by Councillor Biss. Councillor Biss, is that okay? Move like for the second part? Okay. And it's Councillor Harrison McIntyre, so I've got everything correct there. We're good to go? Great, thank you. Okay, moving on, council, we got a motion, be resolved that bylaw 2023-047 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting on March 27, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Harrison McIntyre, Councillor Jacks, all those in favor? Thank you. Council, I have a motion, be resolved that the meeting adjourn at 7:56 p.m. Moving and seconder, Councillor Rappin, Councillor Jacks, and that's carried. Thank you. Council, I know you've been here for 2 hours, so we can take a 5-minute break then, and staff as well, please, and we'll go over to the committee meeting. Thank you. Okay, we'll be Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. We're moving into our Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, March 27, 2023. Confirmation of agenda. So a confirmation and the recommendation is that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting held on March 27, 2023 be confirmed as circulated. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Jacks, all those in favor, that's carried. Thank you, Council. I'm going to go to the clerk. Could you please identify items for separate discussion and the reason thereof, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Item CW31, request bus stop shelter, Wellington Street, Alliston, as staff are seeking direction. And item CW52, update on the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, Rebill 23, as there is a presentation.
Thank you very much. I will then look to members of council. Any other items to pull or discuss? Councillor Cox?
CW51, please.
Just going to come back around the horseshoe one more time. And the deputy mayor just said we're out of items. So, I guess that's easy. So council to identify any items for separate discussion. They've been identified. Are there any members of the public who wish to identify or speak to any of the items that have been pulled for separate discussion? I'm not seeing any. So I will then go back to the clerk to please summarize all items identified for separate discussion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Items CW31, item CW51, Beaton Meadows Urban Design Brief, Beaton Meadows Subdivision, Flato Developments, Inc., care of MHBC Planning, Community of Beaton, file number NT-T 1701 and 1702, as well as item CW52. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a recommendation that all items not identified for separate discussion be received, but they've all been identified. So we don't have any other council items. So the first one on the agenda then is CW31, and that is a request for a bus stop shelter on Wellington Street. We do have a recommendation, so staff is looking for direction. So I'd put it to the floor. Comments or questions or direction to be provided, please. Councillor Rappin.
Is this an opportunity to add an additional option?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to add the option of investigating moving the bus stop. As it says in the report, it's 200 meters east of the town hall. I would like to investigate moving the bus stop to the town hall, where we have a covered area upon entry into the town hall. So if you're waiting for a bus, you're covered and you don't need to be inside the town hall or anything like that. So I would like that to be considered. At least the cost of it.
No, that's fine. So Councillor Biss, please.
I'll second the motion. Your
Okay,
Worship.
thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Rappin, and I would look to the clerk to identify what option that would be. Is there any other discussion on this option? Councillor Gabrick, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking at the math, $15,000 for a bus shelter that approximately 200 people use per month. That's $75 per head. And then we're opening ourselves up to potentially having to install Lynx bus stop shelters at 5 other subsequent locations within the town for a total cost of $75,000. So we're not just voting on placement of one shelter, we're actually making a longstanding decision about bus shelters as a whole. So I personally would not be favorable at this time, as we've exhausted the 2023 budgeting process and we don't have the $75K in the bank to do this.
Oh, thank you. Good points. Duly noted. Any other Deputy Mayor, you have a comment, please?
Just a comment. I support Councillor Rappin's option 5, I guess maybe we'll call it, is that we approach the county and ask them to consider moving the bus stop.
Nope, that's good. Is there any other comments or questions? And I'm going to look to the CEO. Is waiting for him to raise his hand.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. And I'm the last one to throw a complexity in, but considering that we're looking to close this building in a couple of months, does that impact council's decision at all? Because this building won't be open beyond, well, potentially midsummer.
Thank you. So I'd look to Councillor Rappin. You raised your hand first, please.
Through you to the CAO, that doesn't impact my decision whatsoever. I wasn't considering the bus users to be coming into the building. It was strictly being under the overhang of the building. And if in the future the building is no longer, with whatever happens to it or anything, then we can address that at that time. But the other thing in my head was, do we have some sort of contract that says that the bus is running like this for the next 10 years no matter what? Or, because I foresee myself coming up with things for the bus during my term. So that's why I would hate to put something that's 20 grand somewhere and we figure out some other way to run the bus system in our township. Or we find a way to convince the county to run the bus system some other way in our township.
Yeah, just to clarify, the bus is
Yes.
under the county purview. Deputy Mayor, you wanted to respond to that?
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. To Councillor Rappin's comment is that the county is undergoing transportation master plan, I believe this year, correct?
Correct,
Yes,
yeah.
this year. That will look at how the Lynx bus has run up into this point. So if there's any feedback that we would like to send them, I think that would be helpful. So no, it's not set for the next 10 years. I presume there'll be some changes coming out of the county's master transportation plan.
No, and that's a correct statement, and hopefully the bus level service will increase. The only comment I was going to throw out there is, I know at some point bus shelters will be coming, and I don't know if you generate revenue advertising from the shelters to cover the cost of the of installing these. I'm not sure, but I mean, I know that'll take quite a while to develop. So we do have a motion on the floor. Any other comments or questions in regards to the motion? I'm not seeing any, so I would look to the clerk for the council direct staff to undertake option, what would you like me to call it?
We will go with option 5.
Okay, we're going with option number 5. Okay, for the council direct staff to undertake option number 5 in relation to the request to establish a bus stop shelter in Wellington Street, Alliston. It was moved by Councillor Rappin. It was duly seconded by Councillor Biss. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Council. Moving on to item CW5-1, please. And that is the Beaton Meadows Urban Design Brief, Beaton Meadows Subdivision. That was pulled by Councillor Cock. Councillor Cock, comments or questions, please?
Yes, just a couple quick questions. There's no park proposed, but there will be 4.5 acres of public open space. I'm just wondering how much of the 4.5 acres is actually going to be provided as informal areas for the residents to use as presented in the plan, as some of the blocks have been, well, one has a redirected water course, one has a storm pond, and a couple have no public access due to the need to conserve the natural state of the open space block.
I would look to the GM to direct that, if you're okay with that.
Your worship, I can probably answer quickly that this particular plan of subdivision does not have any public parkland contemplated.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, supplementary. I do realize they don't have any public parkland space, and I do realize we are getting cash in lieu when we have that guaranteed by the developer currently. It's just that in their urban design guidelines, they have said that they are looking into or they will be adding trail systems and areas for residents to use as informal meeting places in the open park spaces, which they have said is around 4.5 acres. However, if you look at their plan, a lot of those open park spaces aren't conducive to allowing public access. So is the 4.5 acres an accurate depiction of the open space that's available for public use?
General Manager is just conferring with the director, so I'll wait for him to.
Your worship, through you, that's a detail that I don't have at my fingertips, so we'll have to circle back.
Thank you. I'm hoping in when reports are, and it's through no fault of staff or anything, I just love to see a fair representation of a project when it's being given to council for certain developments. My only second question is, throughout the report too, there are some mentions of perimeter hedgerows that the developer will be looking into the feasibility of keeping, as well as northern boundary trees, just at the frontage of the 8th line, that they're also looking into the feasibility of keeping. I'm wondering why the trees weren't included in the arborist report and are now looking to be taken down, or even if those trees and hedgerows after the initial earthworks are still standing, or if those are already all down.
I'll look to the GM. You can direct however you'd like, please.
Through your worship to Councillor Cox. When the original earthworks agreement was done, there was a cataloging of all the trees on the site, and as part of that earthworks agreement, which was presented to council, the removal of those trees was identified. If during the future construction more trees need to be removed, we have documented them, and a cost has been associated with them. And normally we would catch those things up as part of the subdivision agreement if we get to that stage of having additional trees removed.
Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor? Oh, okay, thank you. Is there any other comments or questions, please? Okay, I'm not just going around the horseshoe. I'm not seeing any. So, one second, Council. So we have a recommendation that report number PD 2023-15 be received. And further, that the urban design brief for the Beaton Meadows subdivision, Flattle Developments, Inc., dated March 2023, provided at the OneDrive link in report number PD 2023-15 be approved. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Rapp and Councillor Biss. All those in favor, please. And that's carried. Thank you. We're moving on to CW5, excuse me, CW52, please, and that's our update on the More Homes Built Faster Act, 2022, in reference to Bill 23. I believe we have a presentation. So welcome. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Norcross and Council. I'm Laura Brannan, and I'm the Senior Planner with the town. This evening I'll be presenting the status of Bill 23, or the More Homes Built Faster Act, and how the town has been affected and what we are doing to address those impacts. I'll refer to the Act as Bill 23 throughout the presentation. Next slide, please, Ben. Thanks. So the purpose of this report is to provide Council with the highlights of the impacts and actions taken to date on Bill 23. Bill 23 introduces several legislative changes to provincial acts, including the Planning Act, Heritage Act, Development Charges Act, Conservation Authorities Act, and its associated regulations. Next slide, please. Thank you. So to speak to the Development Charge Act first, Bill 23 imposes a reduction in phasing period for development charges, which does not currently apply to the town, and full DC rates can be charged at this time. This is due to the town's DC background study and bylaw being completed by the end of 2021, so these rates and their application is therefore legacied under previous legislation. Through Bill 23, some rates have been reduced for multi-unit apartment buildings, but there have been no changes for single detached, residential, commercial and industrial development. With the completion of the Collingwood Water Treatment Plant in 2026, DC collections will increase significantly. At present, due to the lack of water supply, current DC estimates are low, with an estimate of $5 million for 2023. Deficits in DC reserves will be added to future development charge background studies for inclusion into future DC rates. And the initial estimated impact is a loss of at least $50 million overall in development charges over the next 5 to 10 years. This means lost revenue for parks, public spaces, roads, sewers, community infrastructure, and so on. As a result, existing taxpayers may have to pay for a larger portion of growth through taxation. Next slide, please. Bill 23 caps the amount that developers are required to pay for new parkland, so therefore the town will need to assess and update the parkland conveyance bylaw to reflect these changes of reduced parkland and cash in lieu payments. In many instances, the developers and not the town will be determining where to locate new parkland and will receive credit for building privately owned public spaces which aren't public and which aren't town parks. And therefore the town is going to provide guidance on parkland need and location through the future parks, trails and open spaces master plan that will be commenced in 2023. Next slide, please. Moving on to the Planning Act. Responsibilities under Bill 23 are to be removed from Simcoe County. This means that the county official plan will be incorporated into the town official plan and that the province will approve town official plan changes. At this time, the county has been directed to finish their MCR work by the province. With regards to additional residential units, the updated regulations reflect the current town zoning bylaw, except for the parking provisions. Only one parking space is now required for each residential unit, where additional residential units are constructed. And the town zoning bylaw will be updated to reflect these changes. Next slide, please, Pam. Staying with changes to the Planning Act, limitations have been introduced on what can be regulated through a site plan application, unless it relates to health, safety, accessibility, or sustainability. And staff are pursuing whether the urban design guidelines can be implemented to deal with issues of appearance, character, scale, and design. Proposals for 10 units or less no longer require site plan control. Therefore, staff are working on a bylaw to require a development agreement to protect the town's right-of-way interest in terms of water and sewer connections, street tree impacts, repairs to roadways, curbs, sidewalks, and so on. Where a minor variance is required, conditional approval subject to a development agreement will be implemented. And the town's site plan control bylaw is to be updated in 2023, again, to reflect the changes. Next slide, please. So speaking to the Ontario Heritage Act, currently there are 31 properties on the Heritage Register which are not designated, plus an additional 2 which aren't yet on the register. The town has 2 years to designate properties under the Bill 23 changes, and that clock started on January 1st. If not designated within this time frame, these properties lose any heritage protection for a period of 5 years before they can then again be reconsidered for designation. The Heritage Advisory Committee and staff are developing an action plan to address these changes. Next slide, please. In terms of changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, this now means there will be no review of development applications from an environmental or natural heritage perspective by the conservation authorities. That's for us, that's MVCA and LSRCA, and this is effective as of now. To address this, the town has recently retained an environmental consultant for peer reviews, where the cost is passed on to the applicant. The engineering department will continue to work with conservation authorities on stormwater reviews, and the town is working with both the MVCA and the LSRCA to update respective MOUs on services in 2023 to reflect their reduced remits. Next slide, please. So in summary, there will be significant impact to municipal funding from the loss of future DC revenue and parkland conveyance. Existing taxpayers may have to front the cost of growth due to the changes introduced by the province. And the town will continue to monitor Bill 23 changes and strive to minimise service delivery consequences, manage financial impacts and implement new processes where appropriate. Thank you for listening, and staff will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. I wish it was better news, to be quite honest with you. And every time we get an update, it just keeps getting worse and worse. So, interesting. Council, is there any comments or questions of the presentation that's before you? Councillor Gabrick.
Thank you, Your Worship, to the presenter, Laura. So if I'm hearing you correctly, builders can come in and build 10-unit subdivisions, if 10 units is a subdivision, give everyone one parking spot, not have to answer to you. Our cost to deliver the services is going up because now we've got kind of a hodgepodge, grandma's quilt kind of thing going on, with very little control to meet these provincial deadlines. And the residents of New Tecumseth will be paying for this, in part, because of the lack of DCs.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Gabrick. So the proposal would still have to comply with our zoning. So if they don't comply with zoning, they would either have to come in for a minor variance, which is when we can ask for a development agreement through a conditional minor variance, or we wouldn't permit it because it would have to comply with zoning. So that's how we can catch those kind of developments. Most of the developments of 10 units or less within the town need some kind of minor variance. So us introducing the conditional minor variance allows us to have a mechanism to allow for development agreement for things like roads, public right-of-way easements, water and sewage connections, and etc. If they do meet all the zoning, then we don't have a mechanism to require anything additional. I don't know whether Director Vatry wants to speak to anything else on that.
Go ahead, Director Vatry. I thought you did a good job, but I think the answer is yes.
Right.
The only thing to add would be, sorry, through your worship, to
Yeah.
Councillor Galbraith, the only thing to add would be that we are working with our solicitor to see if there are other ways to force a development agreement to be imposed on developers. And that would be coming at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Please.
I know that we've already sent a letter to the province expressing our displeasure with this bill. Is there anything further that we can do as a community, as municipality, to heighten our displeasure, the message?
And that was very well put. And I think you have great agreeance around the council table. So if you want to defer that or however you'd like to handle it.
I'm going to, sorry, through you, Mayor, I'm going to direct that to Director Best.
Director Best?
Hello there. To Mayor Norcross and members of council. With respect to what can we do, what we've presented tonight is what staff can do and what's in our bailiwick. Council can always send another communication to the province, but all of Bill 23, the regulations and information is still, I'll say, still trickling out of the Premier's office. So we don't know the whole full breadth of everything yet. This is where we are today. So it's up to council on how they would like to proceed to show the province the displeasure with the impacts of Bill 23.
No, and I understand what you're saying because I understand a lot more is going, but I think the councillor is saying that what she's seen so far is there's a tremendous amount of displeasure. So would you like to make a motion that we send another letter?
Yes, I'd actually, through you to Director Best, how long before you think we've got the fulsome idea of what's going on here?
I don't have a magic 8 ball or a crystal ball. I expect within the year because it's been trickling out since Royal Assent back in November of 2022.
Okay.
And we're still waiting on information, for example, on development charges and parkland conveyance and a number of other unknown items.
So assumably that would
Yep.
slow down some of the approvals that are necessary for us to give anyways at this point. So I would like to put forth a motion that once we have the full breadth of the report that's coming through, that we send another message, or should we do that more quickly?
I would, Councillor Gabrick, if you like, I would certainly support you saying we send one now based on
Yeah.
this information that we're not happy.
Yes.
And if there's more trickling out, hopefully,
We'll send more letters.
I think we'll be sending a lot of letters.
Okay.
But I think that's important, and I know our counterparts across Simcoe County will be following suit too. So whatever we send, if we could CC the county, because then it'll get circulated to the other member municipalities, and hopefully they'll adopt what we do and send it in.
So I would like to move that then, please.
Yeah, you move it.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Is there any comments or questions? You want to second it? Thank you. Oh, okay, that's fine. Comments or questions? Yeah, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I think it's pretty insulting to most of our intelligence that the province thinks that this Bill 23 will fix the housing crisis. I think it has very little to do with the housing crisis and very much to do with their love of developers. And because this to me, from the onset of how fast it went through the process, government doesn't really work that fast, unless, of course, it's to the favor of the friends of whoever is leading this government. And like I said, I think it's insulting. This isn't going to fix the housing crisis. I'm not fully convinced at this point that there is a housing crisis, but residents already front some of the cost of growth. I know for years we've talked about growth paying for growth, and this is just going to make it 10 times worse. And I'm pretty disappointed in our provincial government. I do not think this is going to fix the problem, And I think it's, and then also they're demanding that we grow. What if we simply can't afford to grow at the pace they expect us to? Puts us in a really difficult position. I certainly don't appreciate being put in this position. I don't think any of us do. But personally, I'd like the province to know that it's not going to work. It sounds great to their developer buddies, but that's about it.
Councillor Jacks, you were next, and then, okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I echo the sentiment of the Deputy Mayor and councillors, and I know from previous sessions we've expressed our displeasure and concern about the impact of Bill 23 on our municipality currently and for the future. And I would like to be on record saying that I share the exact concern, fear, disenchantment with the direction that we're being given by the province. That said, I do want to acknowledge the staff and Director Best, and I would be lying if I didn't say that we can continue to write the letters. We can continue to advocate, lobby, protest. My sense, and it has been since the beginning, is that the train has left the station, and I want to acknowledge the reactiveness and foresight that the staff have been applying since November 24th, I believe, or am I making that date up? In and about. Because I'm sensing, based on the updates, that we are shifting into, I don't want to say acceptance, because I would think that that would signal agreement, and I don't suggest that the staff feel in agreement, but the reactiveness and proactiveness of what does this mean for the future development of New Tecumseth and the residents, and how this impact is going to impact the taxpayers, but as well as our master plans. And so on that note, my question is, I believe it was the first or second slide, Laura, you made an update that was jarring to me, that the developers are going to now be instructing the municipalities as it pertains to parkland development, which is mortifying to think about. As we accept that, how will that impact, for example, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that staff is going to be conducting? Any of the planning, I guess, that we are in the works of, or that was to commence in 2023, will these updates now will they impact, or will they have to be incorporated into potentially a direction we were going to go in and now we are going to be rerouted?
Director Best.
Through Mayor Norcross to Councillor Jacks, based upon the master planning, we stick to what are good planning principles and try and work collaboratively with the development community to bring about proper parks and trails and connectivity in good built form. So from earlier presentation on the working session to urban design, the Parks, Recreation and Culture, they're proposed in development of the master planning for parks and open space and trails. So I would think we want to take the high road and do what is good planning, what is good community building, what are complete communities, and keep with that focus and put that ahead, and we'll deal with what comes out of the province with respect to Bill 23, but take us down the road of where we want to be. And good vision, and that relates back to the official plan update. We talked a bit about the criteria, and some of that was about good community development, distinct communities, sense of place, being fiscally responsible, having, full servicing and paying for that. So I would not want to change our course and direction that the council previously and this term of council seems to be directed in, and we take the high road and continue with our path.
Thank you, Director. Go ahead.
Thank you, and that's wonderful to hear. I'm sorry, I'm becoming notorious for the monologue before the question, so I just want to reiterate my question. The updates that we've received, are they impacting the high road and vision direction that we're moving in any substantial way?
Supplementary through. They will impact. We have to deal with it. It is a fact. Things can change too, with regards to provincial legislation, and we'll deal with it as it comes to us and keep with our vision of what we want New Tecumseth to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had Councillor Foster, then Councillor Harrison McIntyre. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross. Two questions, maybe to Laura or Director Best. On November 24th, you said the province had established a criteria, but I think GM Hoppy had suggested until the regulations that follow, you really don't know what the impacts are. Are the few regulations that have come out so far tracking in lockstep with what the overall picture is, or are you starting to see a change? And the reason why I ask is that when you talk about the financial consequences, governments generally act in the best interest of re-election campaigns, and to suggest that a municipality like this at a 10% tax would be $4 million to fund the cost of development is 15 years of 10% increases. I don't see that as very politically viable. So I'm just curious if there's something out there that would give you pause to suggest that certain aspects of this Bill 23 may be floated as a trial balloon, but as the day approaches to the regulation that they soften some of their stance?
Director, did you want to?
Through Mayor Norcross to Councillor Foster, the regulations are coming out in drips and drabs, and some of them provide information and some are not. And I've also heard also that there'll be continual changes to the legislation. So there's nothing to say that the legislation that was approved back in November won't change in the coming months either. So unfortunately, we're kind of in a bit of a reactive position with Bill 23 or what other bills they come out with. But as I said, if we keep with our master planning and good principles, and will the cost of growth increase? Yes, that's what Bill 23 is. We're challenged on having a funding source.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison McIntyre, you had a comment?
Thank you, Worship, through you. You had said that there's a $50 million, sorry, you made two comments. Mm-hmm. One was that our DCs, because they've been updated, they would be applicable. And then the other was that there's going to be a $50 million, I think it was deficit.
Correct.
Can you elaborate on that? Where does the deficit come from?
I'm going to direct that to Director Gallant.
I was going to say we'll go to finance for that, please.
Through your worship to Councillor Harrison McIntyre, we've identified about 5 or 6 different areas of their legislation, of the changes they've suggested that will impact us. One of the largest areas that we are seeing potential loss in revenue is with the multi-residential development. We do have a lot of that we're anticipating to get over the next few years. And they've made significant changes and significant reductions to rental units or any type of multi-residential unit. For example, based on the number of bedrooms in a unit, they've discounted rates. So that's where we're seeing the largest impact. There are smaller ones as well. For example, they've excluded studies from the background study, studies that you are no longer allowed to include, like master plans, for example. They've been a bit ambiguous about what's included and what's excluded. So I think, to Director Best's point, we'll probably see changes as we try to implement some of these things and as they see maybe flaws or gaps in the legislation.
Follow up, thank you.
So Thank you very much. I understand what you're saying. Just for the other counselors who might be new, when we do a background study on the DCs, there's all sorts of charges that get put in there that the developers come and pay for. So what she was saying, the developers will pay for background studies, or they'll pay for things that are going to need to happen in the future, like new fire stations or new community buildings. So what I'm hearing you say is that that's coming out, all the different things that are not going to be allowed to be included. So even though we have this DC that are accepted by the development community, they're now going to be not have to pay the amount that's already set. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any
This
other?
is not coming from the build community, in other words.
Councillor Rappin?
Through you, Mayor, to council and staff. Is there any value in establishing a position or an increase in a job description that the sole purpose is to seek loopholes and ways to go about business? When you were discussing one of the things, you said because of zoning, that might be a way that we can continue. So I'm just wondering if there's any value in someone that's their full time looking at ways we can figure this out, or have we just resolved that there's no way to figure it out and we've just got to take what we're given? I
think we got pretty confident staff that are very, very educated and very smart, and they know exactly what's going on. And I know there's a lot of information sharing amongst municipalities. So, thank you. I understand what you're trying to say, but I think we're comfortable. Go ahead, Councilor.
Just in case any staff took that as an insult. That wasn't meant as an insult. It was just meant
No,
like,
okay.
I know
No.
Okay.
No, understood. Councillor Best has not spoken.
Thank you, Worship. Through your worship to Laura, I just have three questions. I noticed on page 4 you mentioned that the additional residential units, so far the town allows for 2. Does that include secondary suites and farm help residents? Is that correct?
So help houses are a slightly separate designation under the zoning bylaw, so they have their own provisions. Our zoning bylaw speaks to additional residential units, both attached and detached. So theoretically, a dwelling could have an attached residential unit, so a basement apartment, and a detached, say, garden suite or secondary suite. Those terms are kind of interchangeable. Our zoning bylaw separates out the additional residential units and the help houses because they're specifically for agricultural lots.
Through your worship, so just so I understand, so a rural area, a rural lot, a rural property could have 2 secondary suites, is that correct?
And anything in the settlement area as well.
And in addition to 2 secondary suites, they could also have a farm help residence, is that correct?
Potentially. Yes, because the additional residential unit and the help house would be under separate zoning provisions.
And through your worship then, and does the regulation permit the provincial regulation, not the zoning bylaw, but does the provincial regulation prevent them from having more?
Good question. I think it's limited to 2, so you would have 3 total dwellings on the property. So you'd have the principal dwelling, and then you would have the additional detached and detached. So a total of 3 additional residential units in the settlement area. Yeah.
Through your worship, also then, now as we're looking to create more homes for people, I know there are a lot of people in the rural community that have a lot of land. They're self-sufficient. Obviously, they're not on water, town water, wastewater, so they're self-sufficient. Is there any talk about allowing farmers and rural residents to sever large plots of land to provide affordable housing for their children and for seniors going forward?
So the severances currently wouldn't be in line with our policies for agricultural designated properties. Rural designated properties are slightly different, so they're usually zoned A2. But for our agricultural A1 properties, they're usually classed as prime agricultural, and severances are only permitted in circumstances that would further benefit the farm. So usually there's a size limit, so they have to be over 40 hectares, for example. We can't sever off small portions, say an acre or so, for a residential property.
Through your worship to Laura then, is this something that the province is looking at reducing it so that properties that have, let's say, for argument's sake, 10 acres or less, will be able to sever parts so that they could increase the number of homes for?
At the moment, I'm not aware that they are. The prime agricultural policies are usually quite strong in terms of protecting, our food security and those prime agricultural lands in particular, because of the soil quality. I don't foresee them amending that legislation, but at this point,
I'm going to go to the director because that's more zoning than it is Bill 23.
Yeah, I can answer this through Mayor Norcross to Councillor Biss. With respect to the agricultural policies, when the provincial policy statement was updated, they introduced an agricultural system, and that was to support prime agricultural lands and reduce fragmentation to support agricultural development. So once you start severing lots, you fragment the agricultural community, and it makes it harder for many farmers to establish operations, expand operations with minimum separation distance calculations and so forth. So the agricultural system is one that you leave it alone and don't further sever.
Through your worship to Director Best, I'm just talking about A2, large, already severed pieces of
It's a
property.
no.
It's a no. Okay. Next question. We see that both the county of Simcoe, they're losing their planning responsibilities. Will we see any cost savings from that? Anyone can answer.
Through Mayor Norcross, that will be something we'd have to look at through our budget process and what the value of the service is that what's reduced. At this time, the county doesn't fully know what the reduction of planning services means. It has not been clearly identified by the province.
Thank you. And finally, your worship, through your worship to Laura, Director Best, we know that the town has now procured an environmental consultant. So how much of the NVCA expense is attributed to environmental consultation?
Through Mayor Norcross to Councillor Biz. I don't have the figures. I know the NVCA and LSRCA budgets are online. Planning is going to be working with both CAs to review the memorandum of understandings to drill down what the amounts are, because we don't want to overpay for services not provided.
So supplementary, through your worship to Director Best, do we have a breakout from the NVCA as to all their expenses, basically based into environmental consultation, education, administration, capital expenses? Have we seen a copy of that?
On their online budget, but not broken down by municipality per se.
Through your worship, would it be possible to get that?
He's asking if it's possible to get that.
We can inquire with respect to that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Last one, Councillor Foster.
Thank you to Director Laura or Director Best. With regards to the multi-residential, some of that $50 million that you're speaking of is anticipated lost revenue, but because of the price of land in New Tecumseth is significantly rising, the opportunity for people to build small multi-residential, because it's only units under 10. So generally you're talking about 40 or 50 people per acre. So if we don't have a lot of those units under 10, that number, the potential loss of revenue to the municipality could be significantly reduced, because most people will choose to build bigger because the net return is going to be significantly higher if you go up on the land. Is that a fair analogy?
Through Mayor Norcross to Councillor Foster, I can also, Director Gallant can also, I think there's a bit of confusion between the under 10s and multi-residential. So the under 10 units, depending on what they're proposing, could require some development charges. So when you're talking multi-residential, we're looking at like purpose-built rental 4-story buildings. Those have been discounted DCs. And the additional dwelling units and different types of forms have been reduced, or affordable housing. If any units are like that are built, no DCs are required to be paid.
But supplementary, but with respect to multi-residential, if you had a 6-story tower and there was no units that came under the affordability criteria, then there would be no discounts applied under the current Bill 23 as we see it today.
There, if you're, sorry, Councillor Foster, if you're talking about rental units, there is a discount based on number of bedrooms in each unit.
Irrespective of the size of the town.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a recommendation that report number PD-2023-16 being an up. Sorry? Everyone's good? We're good? Council, you've had your share? Okay. The report number PD-2023, number 16, being an update on the More Homes Build Faster Act 2022 Bill 23 be received. Further, the presentation of Laura Brannon, senior planner, be received, and further town staff continue to monitor the release of further regulations and legislations related to the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022 and continue to explore implications arising from such regulations and legislation. Sorry, go ahead.
I think Councillor Gabrick wanted to add to that motion that we send further correspondence of our immense displeasure.
Oh, okay, I thought that was a separate one. You want to incorporate that into the...
Through your worship, yes, we can incorporate Councillor Gabrick's request to send a letter to the province in opposition of Bill 23.
And I believe that was moved by Councillor Gabrick. And Councillor Jacks, because you seconded, are you okay to add it to this? You're good too? Okay. Any other comments or questions in regards to the presentation or discussion that was put forward? I'm not seeing anything from council. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. Okay, we don't have any public notices. Adjournment recommendation that the Committee of the Whole meeting on March 27, 2023 adjourn at 8:54 p.m. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Best, Councillor Foster. All those in favor? Seconded. Thank you. Thanks, council. Thanks, staff.